On today's show, we've got GK Inside Stories, former mayor, former sheriff Bill Morris, Elvis's exclusive press conference out of Madison Square Garden, probably his greatest. A young lady he dated early on in their life, Miss Barbara Hearn Smith, is with us. We're going to flash back and go into the archives, pull out an interview with Sam Phillips, and a few more surprises for you. We may even do an Elvis collage if we have time. So hang with us. Bill Morris, how you doing, man?
Great, George. Good to be with you.
Former mayor, sheriff, Bill.
Friend of George.
Oh, yeah. And your wife, Ann, graduated from high school with me and Elvis.
That's exactly right, 1953.
Yeah, that's right. You're presently retired?
Presently retired.
And taking care of the family?
Retired, let me say this, retired from politics.
Okay.
Many years ago, 1994. Shortly after that, my wife, whom you know, Ann,
very well,
had a major stroke in 1997, and she's required full care for all these 16 years, and it's been my great honor to have the privilege of caring for her. And we, as you know, you and I discussed this before, just a few days ago, you celebrated 60 years of graduation from Humes.
That's right.
We celebrated 60th anniversary of marriage because we were married 4 days after you graduated from high school.
Wow, I didn't know that.
We sure did.
Bill, you did something while you weren't in office, I don't think, when you did this, but the top 10 young men of America, and Elvis was involved. Tell us that story.
Well, I was in the JCs, which was a great organization for young men in Memphis at that time, and it's a national organization with headquarters in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But generally speaking, it was a leadership training organization for young men so they get a chance to experiment with leadership opportunities in community organizations, community projects. One of the projects that JC's had nationally was to select and recognize 10 outstanding young men under the age of 36 who had accomplished a great deal in different vocations in life. And this was strictly an award on merit, and we were going to host the affair in Memphis. And Elvis not only agreed to be an honoree, but he agreed to help host. And he did it with such class. So that's what happened, and he received the award. And anybody who went to that function where Elvis received the award had to have felt extremely proud because he articulated his relationship to music and to life in such an incredible way. It was super good for all of us.
I'd like to thank the JCs for electing me as one of the outstanding young men. When I was a child, ladies and gentlemen, I was a dreamer. And I read comic books, and I was the hero of the comic book. I saw movies, and I was the hero in the movie. So every dream that I ever dreamed has come true 100 times. I learned very early in life that without a song, the day would never end. Without a song, a man ain't got a friend. Without a song, the road will never bend. Without a song. So I'll keep singing a song. Good night. Thank you.
And he carried that award around a lot, showed it to people. Yeah. He was very, very proud of that. Bill, now you did go with Elvis to Washington to the FBI office one time. Oh, yeah. What was that about?
Well, Elvis had a strong feeling about supporting law enforcement. And as a matter of fact, he had helped establish several drug education programs throughout the country. And he was interested in what went on with the CIA and the Secret Service and all levels of law enforcement. So much so that when he wanted to go meet J. Edgar Hoover, that was a big thing for him. And so I made the arrangements because I'd known Mr. Hoover and we'd worked together with James Earl Ray and so forth. But anyhow, we arranged the trip, and it's all hush-hush. And the FBI said, now, you've come in at 7 o'clock in the morning to the offices at the Justice Department, and nobody will know that you're here, and we'll escort you in up through the building, take you on a tour, see the director, and you'll be out of here. And I thought that was great. But we get there at 7 o'clock in the morning. There must have been 200 to 300 people standing outside the entry where we were supposed to go. So much for secrecy in the FBI, right? But anyway, we're touring the building, going through floor to floor, working our way up to the director's office, and Elvis, I might have told you the story before, decided he needed to go to the men's room.
Yeah.
And Elvis is always dressed with a high collar and belt around the sash, and
he looked like a superstar.
Oh yeah, superstar. So we go into this large men room, tiled floor and so forth, and Elvis pulls his sash loose and a pistol falls out. Well, knowing full well about the security situation, I almost had a heart attack. I'm bringing him through the FBI, and all of a sudden he shows up with a gun and falls out. Didn't flinch. He never flinched. He walked right over, picked up the pistol, put it back in his sash, and we went on about our business. But the end of the story is he never got to see J. Edgar Hoover, because the people who worked in the building were so engrossed in the fact that he was in the building, they created a jam, a traffic jam in the building, and we had to get him out of the building.
Also, Bill, now there's a picture here that I want to show that I was partly involved with you on this, somewhat, but if our cameras can grab a shot of it, it's a picture of you and Elvis singing together.
Right.
Now, what's that all about?
Well, you know, Elvis...
I know what it's about.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, Elvis and I both love gospel singing. I couldn't sing a note, but I love to try, you know. But we'd go out to the house, and I'd get a chance to sing with him some. This, George, you had a bigger part to play than this you think. This was your wedding. At the time, we were in Las Vegas, and he and I were singing a gospel song. And if I'm not certain, but I believe we were singing Amazing Grace, which was one of my favorite songs. And of course, he grew up in Tupelo, and at that area where gospel music was the thing for my family. And that was back when the Blackwood Brothers used to have tents set up out in the rural areas of Mississippi and Tennessee and so forth, and they'd bring their quartets, and they'd perform in tents, you know, like for 10 to 25 cents a person.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what everybody knew in rural North Mississippi, where I grew up. Well, that's sort of where the foundation of this lays. And I used to go to the all-night gospel sings down at the Ellis Auditorium and so forth, but Elvis loved all the same things, so that's how we ended up singing together.
Wow. Bill, any final thoughts about Elvis before we let you go?
The thing, as we talked earlier, the thing that I always appreciated about Elvis, I was always proud of him because he loved his hometown, and he did anything he could do to help. And I recall Memphis, during the early days of Elvis, was struggling for tourism. And Elvis, without even realizing it, through his talent and through his love for Memphis, he became a major tourist attraction with Graceland, and with 500,000-600,000 people come. He has contributed probably more than any other individual that I've ever known to the success of our economy and this city through his music and through tourism. And he alone has helped make Memphis a destination city for tourism. And then, of course, Memphis has jumped in, and they've helped develop the zoo and the Orpheum and so many other amenities to go with that. And
Beale
Memphis,
Street,
the Beale Street and all this. But it's been a part. He was the catalyst to make all that happen. Memphis is a better place today because Elvis Presley lived in Memphis, and his legacy is still producing for all of us.
Bill, that's great. Great way to end the interview, I guess, huh? Bill, you tell Ann I said hello, okay?
Thanks, George.
And we'll do this again.
Sounds good.
Former sheriff, former mayor of Memphis, Tennessee, former great friend of Elvis, Bill Morris, GK, Memphis Sounds. On Memphis Sounds with George Klein, we're going to flash back now. This is an exclusive interview that we have in our archives. It's Elvis doing a press conference at Madison Square Garden.
Man, I was tame compared to what they do now. Are you kidding? I didn't do anything. We just jiggle, you know.
How do you feel about How do you feel about the way performers act on stage now compared to what you used to do and get criticized for?
Oh, I don't know. I really can't criticize anybody. In the entertainment field, I think there's room for everybody, and I hate to criticize another performer, you know.
Elvis, are you satisfied with the image you've established?
Well, the image is one thing, and a human being is another, you know. So.
How close does it come? How close does the image come to the man?
It's very hard to live up to an image. I'll put it that way.
You don't record hard rock anymore. Why?
it's very difficult to find any good hard rock songs. If I could find them, I would do them, you know.
What do you think of women's liberation?
Well, you know, watch it is right. No, on social comments like that, dear, I just assume not to make a comment.
Do you ever regret throughout the years, last 7 to 8 years, anything you would have liked to have done differently? I mean, the number of people, the crowds asking for your autograph, you know, how has that affected you, and that kind of adulation, has that scared you off?
No, I got used to it. I would kind of miss it if it didn't happen, you know. If nobody saw me, or if nobody recognized me or whatever, or an national autograph, to me it's just part of the business, and I accept it. I think I would miss it.
You know, I'd never seen Elvis trash a room. In fact, none of the musicians that worked for him ever saw him trash a room. It was fashionable later on with rock and roll stars. But anyway, we're out in Los Angeles, and Elvis is doing the soundtrack for the motion picture Jailhouse Rock. And we went to the MGM studios. Well, Elvis didn't like to record on big sound stages. They were too big, they were humongous, and that's where MGM did all of the musicals. He liked a small studio like he did at Sun Records, a small studio, Studio B in Nashville, RCA. So he goes there, and Elvis's way of warming up was sitting down at the piano and singing gospel songs. A lot of singers have different methods and ways of warming up, so to speak. So the Jordanaires were there. They were Elvis's gospel group, but they sang background for him. So they came over, and they started singing gospel songs. And they went into 12 noon, and they said, lunchtime, Mr. Presley. He'd been singing with them for a couple hours. So we take a break, we go back to Elvis's dressing room, and I knew that Elvis was upset, but he didn't want to record in a big, humongous sound stage at MGM. And so after lunch, we go back to the sound stage, and Elvis sits down, and the Jordanaires stay over to the side. He said, what's wrong with you guys? Come on over here. They said, Elvis, he's come here, Jordan, the lead singer, Gordon Stoker, lead singer. Gordon, what's going on? They said, well, Elvis, they told us they want to get on with the sessions, and they don't want you to sing any more gospel songs. He said, who signed your check? Gordon Stoker said, you do. He said, let's start singing. And they sang for the next 3 hours gospel songs until 5 o'clock. That was break time. We got it left. Elvis didn't cut a song. We go back to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, and we all knew, all the guys in the group, that he was really upset. And we never see him do what he was going to do. We went and had one of those little bumper pool games, you know, that you see in bars and stuff, and we started seeing bumper pool. Well, in the Beverly Wilshire, he had the presidential suite, real paintings and real pictures and beautiful glass, smoked glass and all that stuff all the way around. Well, we're messing around. Elvis is going to show us a trick shot. Well, he hits the ball and accidentally goes up and hits one of those really very expensive smoked glass mirrors and busted it out. And we kind of backed up, and then he went over and said, watch this. And boom, and he hit a picture, and he said, watch this. And so we started egging him on. Elvis, get that little ugly picture over there. We don't like that one. He said, all right, and he did this. And then he took the pool cue, and he turned it around, and he used it as a golf club, and he knocked all those little things on the table off against the wall. Then he took the pool table, and turned it over, and said, send my food to my room. We knew he was really upset. So we called Colonel Parker. Colonel Parker came to us, what in the world happened? We tried to explain it to him, and he said, you guys got any sheets? We said, yeah, we got sheets on our bed. He said, well, you cover all this up. He said, I'll tell them that you guys had a rock and roll party, and we'll pick up all the expenses. We'll pay all the expenses here. We said, okay, Colonel, but he didn't like to record on that sound stage. So the next day, we get in a limo, go to the studio, on a smaller studio this time. Elvis cuts 3 smash hits in a row. Jailhouse Rock, Treat Me Nice, I Want to Be Free, You're So Beautiful. He just didn't like to record on big sound stages, and I think he got his point across. On the Elvis Special here on Memphis Sounds with GK, we're going to go into the archives once more, pull out an interview of Sam Phillips, the man who discovered Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley has to be one of the most outstanding people that it's been my pleasure to meet in my lifetime. After listening to his voice, seeing his demeanor, his manner, and what I thought was a very different style, I was highly impressed with what I thought he could do as an artist. And regardless of what happened to Elvis in his latter years, he had one of the strongest souls and spirits about him of any person I've ever seen. Well, you say you had something to do with the guy being on the scene. Sure as hell did. Sure did. But you have to keep in mind what we were doing at Sun Records with Elvis Presley. And it turned out that Elvis was a great catalyst for all of the things that we did at Sun. But you had to have a feeling that this man had the strength and the worth within him to go on and to go on and to go on until we made it, or by golly, we didn't make it. It is no mystery at all to me that the man has become the biggest thing in the history of entertainment. I know that some of you may differ with me. When you have the things that have been said about Elvis Presley, bad, good, indifferent, and you survive them as if you were a duck in a fresh pond, there's got to be something in your soul, in your spirit, that you have left along the way. Because you're not going to sustain yourself head and shoulders above practically anybody I've ever known in the entertainment business. And I'm not biased about it. And have it go on year in, year out, year in, year out, worldwide. Try that one on for size. He had a background there at Sun Records that I truly feel, and I'm not being modest or immodest about it, that gave him that inertia to go in and feel confidence in himself and what he wanted to do, and even say, even though he said yes sir to everybody and no sir, he would tell them in his own way that this was his session when he went to RCA. That had a lot to do with Elvis Presley being what he became. And that came from the essence of these things that we were fundamentally talking about, and talking about fundamentally. I just wish that everybody could have known Elvis Presley like I did.
There was a period in Elvis's life he wasn't performing in Las Vegas, so we would just go out there just to party for a couple of weeks and have a lot of fun after tours and so forth and so on. So we get to Vegas and we're partying, and all of it, it's about 4 or 5 in the morning, and Elvis is going to take this young lady home. Well, she lived at the end of the strip there in Vegas. So here comes 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, no Elvis. We got a little bit worried. About 7:30, he comes in the suite where we said, Elvis, what in the world happened? He said, well, I went out to get into my car, and he said he wouldn't start. He said the battery was dead for some reason. So I got out on the strip here in Vegas, and I started hitchhiking, and this young girl stops by, and she picks me up. She's on her way to school. And she said, mister, she said, you know, I'm not supposed to pick up strangers, but you look so much like Elvis Presley, I thought I'd give you a ride. Where are you going? He said, well, I work at the Sahara Hotel. I'm a bellhop down there or something. So she drops him off at the Sahara, and she said, sir, would you please just go to school with me and let my friends see how much you look like Elvis Presley? He said, no, I don't even like that guy. I got to go to work, honey. Thanks for the ride. See you later. To this day, she never knew that she picked up Elvis hitchhiking. George Klein at Memphis Sounds. Our purpose? To keep Memphis music past, present, and future alive. We need your support. We need your help. The number to call is 901-415-2833. Now, seriously, folks, we need some help. Give us a shout, because we got a lot of building going on around here. We got wonderful cameras. We need some more money to help this thing go and keep that Memphis music alive. Barbara Hearn-Smith. How you doing, Barb?
I'm doing fine, George. So good to see you again.
Good to see you, honey.
Thank
How's
you.
it been going?
Been going fine, but hey, can I do a little bitty plug?
All you want.
About that library. It is wonderful.
Yeah.
Jim and I have come up and just sat upstairs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the Memphis room, and we do genealogy up there, whatever you're interested in, plus that wonderful little bookstore.
Barb, how did you meet Elvis, and what happened?
Well, you know, I told the same story for years, and I believed it. But I might not have been telling the truth. I don't know. I always thought that I met Elvis for the first time through Dixie when we were working together, Christmas 1954 at Goldsmith's department store. But I had it in the back of my mind that someone had invited me to go to the Oddfellows Lodge, or where the Oddfellows had rented a place, or maybe Elvis appeared. And it's terrible to say it to Elvis fans that I would have seen him performed and forgot it. But you know, when you're a young teenager, you're all about yourself.
Yeah. But Dixie had been dating Elvis.
Yes.
And then you come along, you guys are good friends, and then you start dating Elvis.
Well, Dixie and Elvis had not dated for about a year or
Oh, I
so.
see.
When, and it was such a dear thing because I was modeling for Pearl & Lowenstein's.
Yeah.
And I walked out into the outside of the studio, and Elvis was standing there. And I said, "Hi," you know, I was so surprised to see him. First thing he said to me, "How's Dixie?"
Oh, wow.
I just thought that was so dear that he
Yeah.
would still be, you know,
Yeah.
thinking about her and wondering about her. And I told him then, well, I probably haven't seen her since you have, because I was a year ahead of her in school. And I had already graduated. She was still going to school. And
Talk about dating Elvis, Barbara.
well, it ran the spectrum, really. When we first started dating, he would just drive over and come in, and we'd go out, just the two of us, anywhere we wanted to go. And people would see him, but you know, they kind of stood back at first. And we would stand in line at the Malco and buy the tickets, go in, sit anywhere, and watch the movie. And by the end, somebody else would come and get me, and we would just go to his house or something that was more secure. He couldn't get out the way he did at first. And at first we'd go to the fairgrounds and just walk around like any other young teenage or young adult couple and throw balls and things at milk bottles and all the things you do. And I never rode the Pippin, scared to death of the Pippin, but I rode everything else, and I watched him ride the Pippin. And it was a wonderful time, but just that year, 1956, he just went from this wonderful young, uncomplicated boy to this terribly complicated superstar.
Yeah.
All in the course of a year.
Yeah. But Barbara, you were dating him when he did the Ed Sullivan Show, because you, well, tell the audience out there watching, you had something made for him for the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yes, it was Christmas '56, and what do you get for somebody who either has everything or can have it if he wants it?
Right.
And I thought about it, and I wasn't a person of large means financially, and I don't know when the idea hit me, but I went to Goldsmith's basement, and I bought a couple of yards of gold lame material, and I bought a pattern for a vest, and 3 little letters, EAP, and a couple of yards of black satin, and took it to a friend of mine's mother, and she made Elvis the vest, and I gave it to him, and he liked it. I could tell he liked it,
Oh, yeah.
but you know, wasn't carried away, and turned on the Ed Sullivan Show, and there he was wearing it.
Wow, that had to make you feel good.
Oh, it did. It really
Didn't you
did.
call the lady that
Oh, yes. The minute I saw him, I called her, turn on the TV, turn on the TV. Elvis is wearing your vest.
what would have happened to that vest?
I don't know. Somebody told me, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, that Colonel at one time had little bits of material that he cut out of some of Elvis's
And gave it, was
clothes.
involved, if you bought an
Put it-
album or
yeah,
something.
and if you bought the album, you got a piece of that. And they said that they thought that vest was cut up and given away like that.
Wow. Barb, what is the one thing that you remember mostly about being with Elvis?
Laughing, being happy. Yeah, just being happy.
You know, the first time I met you, I was on the air at WMC in the afternoon, the George Klein Rock and Roll Ballroom Show. Elvis walks in with you, Nick Adams,
Right.
and this gorgeous girl named Barbara Hearn. And he said, GK, I want you to meet Barbara Hearn. And I said, man, she looks like a movie star. I said, no, she's a Memphis girl. And we hung out some, and then we went out to Elvis's house on Audubon Drive now. And we played Name That Song or something, and I'm really bad on melodies, and Elvis sat at the piano, I don't know if you remember that or not, and he would play us, and he said, what's that? And you would answer a lot of them, I'd guess 1 or 2, and he said, GK, you're a disc jockey, you should know. You remember that night?
I remember that game, yeah, because I was good. But, you know, I listened to music all the time. You were playing it and then not listening while you're getting ready for all your other stuff.
That's true.
And I was listening.
I saw a picture the other day, and you're in the background. It's me interviewing Elvis. You're sitting over here, and Nick Adams is leaning on a
Right, that
shelf.
famous picture of
Yeah.
you and Elvis. And anytime it comes up, I tell whoever will listen, well, I'm right over there.
That's right. You were there when that picture was made.
That's
That
right.
picture's been around the world, man. Of Elvis in the control room, me with his arm around. Barbara, let's talk about Holly Tree Farms, okay? Manor, Holly Tree Manor.
That's where Jim and I live now. And we turned it into a bed and breakfast because it was so big. It was too big for the two of us. That's one reason. The other reason is we finally, in 2009, we started meeting Elvis fans for the first time ever. And I was just so impressed with them. And they were so kind and good and sweet to me and welcoming, and loved to hear my Elvis stories. And now I've told them a million times. They still wanted to come out and talk to me and hear these stories some more. And so we decided to open up our place as a B&B, a bed and breakfast.
And Barbara, before I let you go, there's another thing that I always like to point out when people who really knew Elvis, like you did, his mother Gladys. You got along famously with her. Can you give us a short story?
Oh my goodness. She was so easy to love. She was so honest and open, and she cared a lot for you, George. I know that. And she used to come to visit me when Elvis was out of town. Mr. Presley would just drive her over. Yeah. And I remember once my aunt told her, we had steps all the way up the front of the house, and my aunt said, Mrs. Presley, I don't want to insult you, but if you just come up the back alley, you could get to our house without having to climb all those stairs, you know. So from then on, she'd come in by the alley and come in the back door, and I don't know, I often wonder, what did a young girl and this older lady, what did we talk about? What did we have in common? And I don't know, but we just enjoyed each other's company. I used to telephone her when we'd be out. Many times in the movie theater, I've excused myself to go call and tell her where we were, because we didn't have cell phones or anything.
I knew she really loved you.
Well, I hope so, because I really cared for her.
You were and still are a class lady.
Thank you, George.
Barbara Hearn Smith, we got to go, girl.
Okay.
We can make this a whole show. You tell Jim, your husband, I said thanks for bringing you down. I know it's a holiday weekend and all, but whatever, thanks for coming by.
Anything for you, George.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay. Barbara Hearn Smith, she dated Elvis early on. GK, Memphis Sounds. And the one and only Elvis Aaron Presley takes us to the house.
Memories of holding hands and red bouquets and twilights trimmed in purple haze and laughing eyes and simple ways and quiet nights and gentle days with you. Memories pressed between the pages of my mind. Memories sweetened through the ages just like wine. Memories